It's hard to believe that after all this time working on this book, that this moment has arrived. Oh gosh, there are people there. They're looking.
Hello, everybody. We have a couple of very special guests. Please join me in welcoming David Leaf, American writer, director, and producer who is best known for his associations with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys since the late 1970s. Give it up for David Leaf.
This is an exciting night. My name is David Leaf. I'm an author, a filmmaker, and a professor at the UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music, where one of the 4 courses I teach is called The Real Beatles, R-E-E-L. Our guest tonight knows more about one real Beatle than anybody on the planet, I think. Please welcome my friend and the author of this remarkable new book, We All Shine On, Mr. Elliot Mintz.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure to see everybody. Oh gosh, I haven't faced this many people live since my bar mitzvah. Thank you all for coming. David, thank you for those remarks. As usual, more than I deserve, but have at me.
We can have that argument another time. So I want to start off, you have been so close to 2 of the most impactful and famous artists of their time and of all time. So my first question is, why now?
2 things happened in my life. I went to visit Yoko and Sean for Yoko's birthday. And during that visit, Sean had once again urged me that if I was to ever write a book, this would be the time to do it. And another thing happened during that particular visit. I turned 79. Still not thrilled with that, but nevertheless, I figured, if not now, when? And if I wasn't doing this right now, I'd be sharing this with you via Ouija board.
But there is a special intimacy to this book. Were you a diarist during the 1970s, or did this come from just memory?
I never kept a journal. I never kept a diary, I never kept notes. Do you, with your best friends on the telephone? You know, I figured that we would be yapping forever. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody that you loved, who was meaningful in your life, that you just never forgot? It was indelible, and it would be forever. And that's what stuck. And that's what I typed out of my laptop with 2 fingers for the past year.
Well, it's quite extraordinary. You began your career as a broadcast journalist here in local stations, public radio. How did that help you the first time you spoke with Yoko?
Yeah, I interviewed probably 1,000 people during my radio and television days. I interviewed a bunch of well-known people. I became de-celebritized. I just tried to meet people in the present moment, but as the conversation unfolds, we all shine on. We're all the same. We all respond to the same disappointments and the same sense of conviviality and love. So, yeah, the first time I spoke with Yoko, the first time I spoke with John, I did think of the celebrity factor. That dissipated quickly, and it was just one-to-one friends. That first conversation with Yoko was just, I never spoke with anyone who was that original in their thinking, who was so immediately captivating and inspiring and optimistic. And we went on and talked and talked and talked for the next 40 years.
As you look back on this time that you so beautifully capture in the book. What do you think is the most surprising thing that came out of your heart and your soul and your brain and onto that screen?
I really tried to express in the book how human John was, with his foibles, his accomplishments. He called himself a working class hero, and he was. And when he sang, "Who on earth do you think you are? A superstar? Well, right you are." That's what I loved about him, and I have a feeling that most of you in this room made that connection too. You saw beyond the makeup. By the way, we're being videotaped. I don't usually have this on my Facebook shopping at Ralph's, but it's just the nature of the experience.
What was one of the favorite moments that you observed that when you were observing it was so surreal that you were like, I cannot believe I'm in this situation?
We were in Kyoto, Japan. They were kind enough to invite me to join them on a trip to Japan. And we were at one of the holy shrines that people visit. And you know that John's relationship with organized religion and John's relationship with God, a little sketchy. I think that's a polite way of putting it. But we stood in front of this line where you post little wishes or horoscopes on the string, and you stand there for a moment and observe. And I looked over and I saw what appeared to me as John in prayer. And I just wondered what ran through his mind at that moment.
There's a moment in the book that strikes me as almost hilarious, because there were maybe 3 people on the planet who had ever suggested that how John might rewrite a song. That would be Paul McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney, Sir George Martin, and Yoko Ono. Would you tell us about the song God and what happened?
Do I have to? The classic Lennon song called God. John lists this litany of figures he does not believe in, and he shared this song with me. And I had the dumb idea of just making a suggestion to John. I said, look, you know, this may be more effective if you had written or sang. You might not believe. You might not believe. And ended with, I just believe in me, in Yoko and me. That's reality. That was my suggestion as to how John might want to revise the song. I don't want to tell you exactly what he said to me about that suggestion, but rest assured I never ever suggested to John how the lyrics could be improved upon.
Let's talk a little bit about Yoko. When you met her, she was well aware that even though it wasn't true, she was the woman who was being blamed for breaking up the Beatles. What are the insights that will inform people and how they think about her that you're proud of?
I want you to do a Google search, not at this moment, but when you have a chance, and see if you can find one single sentence coming from Yoko Ono that was negative about anyone. How many others can say the same? Yoko was about forgiveness and redemption. Even in the end, when some people did some terrible, terrible things to her. And she said, I like to think of them in the way they were, when I first met them. Not when it went afoul, but that particular image. Obviously, we know she didn't break up the Beatles, and obviously we know that you can't tell John Lennon what to do. And if she had said at some time, look, these guys sound pretty good with you, I kind of like the tunes, but what you really should do is leave them, and we should go off and make avant-garde music together, right? No, it didn't play that way. The Beatles broke up because, as John has expressed publicly, they simply all had had enough.
Can you point to an anecdote or a story in the book that you think is surprising about Yoko, that people will go, huh, that's really amazing?
Yoko continues to baffle. During their separation, Yoko invited some of her lady friends to play mahjong. And one night at 4 o'clock in the morning, she called and she said that her friends had just left and they had played mahjong and they bet who was going to win. And I said, well, how did that work out? And she said, I won. And I said, well, that's great news. And she said, but none of them paid me. Then she paused and she said, you know, it's one of the reasons I don't get Christmas presents. Because people think I have everything. So they might send a card. But I rarely, if ever, get a gift. It surprised me.
Let's talk about John. What's the most surprising thing people will learn about John in the book?
He could never contain his expression. He would have been miserable as a public relations person. He had an opinion on everything. And if anybody wanted to contradict it, he would stay in the room with you for 4 hours and try to convince you, of his point of view. He was a man married to his reality. And some might say that he was more in touch with his inner truth than most of us were, which is one of the reasons he gave us inspiration to be more truthful with ourselves.
In the course of writing the book, what did you learn about yourself that surprised you?
Well, first, that I could stay up till 6 o'clock in the morning every night actually doing this. One of the things that surprised me is what I refer to in the book as the exchange. What was given, what was taken, what my destiny may have been like had I never met John and Yoko. It made me happy to recall these memories that have shaped my life. And there were nights that it just made me so sad.
The opening scene of this book, and I don't want to spoil it, is so powerful. It's so emotional. You refer to a letter with your name on it. Did you ever get to read that letter?
During the course of me taking an inventory of all of John Lennon's possessions after his passing, Yoko asked me to do it. She entrusted me with that experience. And I did the inventory work over weeks and weeks. I think 600 or 700 pages. And in the inventory, kind of to the end of the experience, there was a manila envelope marked Elliot Mintz. It was sealed. And I thought to myself, well, I'm doing an inventory. I should, just open this up to see what's in it. But of course, it had not been sent out. It was still John's personal communication. It did not belong to me. So I took that envelope and put it back in the inventory, where it is someday today. It's what I refer to as a piece of unfinished business and maybe a connection to the ongoing dialogue.
It's extraordinary that you didn't open it.
It wasn't mine.
It's extraordinary that 53 years later you haven't seen it, so maybe it'll be in the sequel to this book.
Not written by me.
Is there a favorite story you could share with us right now?
In all honesty, David, I couldn't pick one. As much as I shared in the book, I could have gone on for 2 or 3 more volumes. I have a propensity for sharing, and I also honor the right to keep some of the John and Yoko stories private. This was never intended to be some kind of salacious tell-all. That's not what I do. And it was never intended to be a love poem to John and Yoko. Simply as honest a recounting as I'm capable of delivering. Hey, it's my first book.
Beautiful. The word that I saw in another interview you did, there was no compensation because you did it for love. Talk a moment about that.
Of course, I never charged them a dime. They were friends of mine. Wouldn't you do anything for someone you once loved that dearly without running the meter? After John died, Yoko always reminded me when I recounted that not to use the word died. Yoko says I should always use the word murdered, and for people to keep that full frame in their brain. John did not have the peaceful passing he deserved. In 1980, after John was murdered, Yoko asked me to speak for the estate. I did. I have been compensated. Nothing's changed.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, for those questions. I mean, you really are a superb interviewer, and I appreciate it. David Lee.
Thank you. Let's take some questions. Okay, this young woman.
Yoko would call someone on the phone and they would do a tarot card reading what John is doing at the appropriate time in Los Angeles while he was with May Pang or having his lost weekend. Do you ever recall her being off on a reading and it didn't come true, or everything was meant to be? She knew John would come back to her after the lost weekend.
Yoko constantly consulted with astrologers, tarot card readers, and she rarely made any choices or decisions without consulting with one of them. I don't know if a psychic of any kind had predicted that the relationship with May Pang would come to an end. She just felt that John would come back when he was ready to come back.
Yes, I remember reading that. Thank you, Elliot. I can't wait to read your book. Great title, by the way.
He wrote it.
I know.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you got involved with the lost Lennon tapes and how that material was selected and discovered or uncovered.
It was during the course of the inventory that I was taking that I found a location above a bedroom that had shoji screens. And, you know, I was going from apartment to apartment. I was opening every drawer, every closet. And when I opened the shoji screen, I saw these cardboard boxes filled with hundreds of cassette tapes that may have been marked John speaking, John composing. And I thought, well, this certainly has to be preserved. There came a time later when I was representing a big radio distributing company called Westwood One, and I was meeting with the CEO, and I told him about these tapes, and he said, wow, hundreds of hours of unreleased John Lennon material. We would love to circulate that around the world. I called Yoko, and I said, so they would like to do this. And Yoko said, well, it'd be a wonderful way of sharing the material. The material obviously was not the kind of thing you could release commercially. You couldn't dance to it. And we set up a meeting with the three of us, talked about it. And Norm Pattis, the CEO of that company, and Yoko struck a deal. And the Lost Lennon tapes ran for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes, heard around the world for 4 years. Now here's the thing that I want you to embrace. This turns out to be the longest bonus track that was ever presented. Before these excerpts were released, think about it. Outside of, for a few jazz artists or folkways records, if it wasn't scheduled for release, they threw it away. So this was the first time that you could hear how John created Strawberry Field. You could hear him first on the acoustic guitar, then you could hear the piano version, and all of them were presented on this series. It was a joy for me to be able to do that. That's how that series came about.
I used to listen to it every week, and I just want to say thank you. It was a really great show. Thanks for putting that together.
Thank you.
Hello, Elliot. I'm very curious to learn more about your time in Laurel Canyon. And I understand that John lived with you for a time there during his Lost Weekend. I'd like to know if that's true, and if perhaps he wrote any music during that time, or if you were party to any jam sessions or things like that.
There's a lot of mythology about my life in Laurel Canyon, and that's part of it. No, John never lived with me. He visited me in that wonderful little 1,600 square foot house at the top of Kirkwood Drive. We spent evenings there. He attended a little get-together that I had where there was a jam session with, I believe, Mickey Dolenz and Harry Nielsen, some others. I taped it. I'm still looking for it in the archives. I'll let you know when I find it. That thing went on half the night. I loved Laurel Canyon. I spent the best years of my life in that canyon. And you can leave Laurel Canyon, which I did over 35 years ago, but the canyon never leaves you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions here in front.
I have a question that more relates to Sean. Similar to David, well, thank you. Thank you so much. Similar to David, I'm Al Jardine's songwriting partner. And
Wow.
we did a benefit concert once, and I lived a block from Sean in the West Village. And I sat them together, and for me as a fan, having a Lennon and a Beach Boy together, it's the closest thing you'll have to having the Beatles and the Beach Boys in your living room. And Sean asked Al Jardine, he said, I don't have a memory of my father. I've learned about him through other people. So my question for you is, have you since been sharing what his dad was like?
Sean only got to experience his father for 5 years. I spent more time with John than Sean did. So in the beginning, Sean asked me lots of questions. Although Sean only had 5 years with his father, they were complete days, weeks, hours, and months. It's as if any one of us had spent 25 years receiving only our father's attention. So Sean was not deprived of the experiences that he retains. And he's gone on to be a very, very, very wise soul. Creative and brilliant. And the inspiration for me writing my book.
Has Sean read the book? Has Sean read the book?
Sean left me a text last night congratulating me about today. And I try not to speak for other people. A moment ago, you had said that I was John and Yoko's best friend. And I know that's been picked up by the media. They never made that declaration. The declaration that I've made is they were my best friends. So I'm just trying to keep the story straight.
I appreciate it, but given what you'll read in the book about the 3 and 4 hour phone calls on a daily basis, one only has those phone calls with somebody who is pretty close to their best friend.
I think they like me a lot.
Well, accept your modesty. Was there one more question here? Yeah. One second. There's
Hi, Michael.
Mike.
I don't need that.
It was so wonderful to see you again. I haven't seen you in ages.
This is Michael Dorr, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause, thank you. You know what I was thinking about was, when you were with John alone, did he ever talk to you about the breakup with the Beatles?
He talked about it many times to me. He talked about his ongoing feelings about Sir Paul McCartney. I put all that in the book. And I wanted people to know what he shared. The last interview that I did with John on television, what people so frequently call the walk on Malibu Beach, I said, a lot of people, they just don't understand why the Beatles broke up. If you had one opportunity to explain that to them, what would you say? And he said to me, quote, it's on video, because we had all had enough. And maybe it had gone on too long. That's why the Beatles broke up.
Well, thank you so much for answering my question. This evening has been staggering. I mean, yeah.
It feels like a family. And, well, when you come up here to have the book signed, I just want to acknowledge you personally.
Everybody's going to kiss you.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Yoko. The notion of imagine sounds very much like her. Did John say Yoko inspired Imagine?
He absolutely did. And there was a ceremony a number of years ago where, I don't know the exact phrase, where Yoko received a co-credit for that song. Yoko had put out a book many, many years ago called Grapefruit, which was a series of instructions, little inspirational aphorisms in the form of almost like Japanese haiku. And they were all uplifting and they were all funny. And they just encouraged you to imagine. Look, we live in rather tense times right now, in case you haven't noticed. And we're all hanging on, hoping for a better world. Before we get the better world, we have to have a vision of that world that we are seeking. And before you can wish for it, you have to imagine it. Imagining is not just some kind of passive thing that you do before you fall asleep at night. It is a demonstrable act. And don't let anybody stand in the way of your imagination.
That is a spectacularly inspiring way for us to end the evening, because when you read the book, you will spend hours and hours in Elliot's imagination as he tells us the stories we always wanted to know. So thank you very much, Elliot Mintz.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, hello. How are you, my friend? Good to see you, David. To Laura, with love. Look at this face and those ears.
Perfect. I love you.
Thank you so much for coming.
I love you so much.
I love you so much.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you for coming here tonight. With love.
Love. Oh.
I'll see you soon.
And congrats, and we'll have dinner. We'll have dinner soon.
In your neighborhood.
Yes, let's do it.
It's so good to see you.
And good to see you. You look wonderful.
Picture, I'm gonna send it to Sean and.
Hi, Sean. Thank you so much for coming. Steve.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting you.
I'm so proud of you. I'll like.
Please, enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll try. No, no. Don't get up that early in the morning.
Did you see this? Oh, and then this actually has footage of you from the beach. You can sign that anywhere you like, down there, up there.
Michael.
You did a great job.
Oh gosh, very, very scary, very nerve-wracking.
It's what's left of the Lost Lennon Tapes production crew.
How well I remember. Mr. Levine.
Sure.
What do you do?
I'm so proud of you. Very, very. I know what this journey.
For Michael, with love forever.
I'm so glad that you're getting to have this experience and, this kind of turnout.
It was given to me to share. I'd be very curious to see what both of you think of. You're more than welcome.
Thank you so much.
Take care of the canyon. Good evening. Wow.
I got a little pile for you.
Yes, you have. Thank you all. I'm dancing as fast as I can up here.
You're going to be here till 11:30 tonight.
I hope so. For Margot, M-A-R-G-O-T. And I'm going to do something that I only do once every 100 books.
Okay.
1 out of 100 gets my special sketch.
That's such a wonderful event.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. And my dad came too over there.
Hello.
What a
beautiful. I'm
what
so
a
happy to be
pleasure
a part of
seeing
this.
you.
Yeah.
We're going to stay open till 2 a.m. We are.